Today I got a story about liberal misery, a book written by Scarry. I thought this video was interesting and I wanted to highlight it because there's one liberal amongst the three people in this video, and he's a very unhappy person. You can see that he's unhappy. He doesn't seem to be at all amused by the statistics or facts that are given by the man who wrote the book, Liberal Misery. And I think this video shows and illustrates how unhappy liberals are and the classic nonsense that they like to play, and the classic I'm better than you because I care more than you. So with that being said, if you haven't hit the like and subscribe, do that now, because let's roll into it.
Scarry, who's the author of a new book, Liberal Misery: How the Hateful Left Sucks Joy Out of Everything and Everyone. Eddie, thank you so much for coming on Rising Fridays.
Yeah, happy to be here.
One of the things that struck me about the book is that it gets at something deep and serious about how sort of lifestyle differences, changes in the way people see the world, are having a serious psychological effect, I think, on folks who identify with the left in this country. Could you tell us a little bit about just some of the numbers and the research you stumbled upon as you were producing this book?
That has played out over the course of at least probably the last 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, where you go into these social gatherings. You have what you think is going to be a well-meaning encounter with a stranger, and suddenly it's all politics and conflict and controversy. But yes, there are many studies that back this up. Studies, surveys, data, all in my book, showing that liberals are more likely just to be unhappy with their marriages, with their jobs, where they live. They're more likely to block somebody on social media because they disagree with something they said. They're more likely to say they don't want to literally sit at lunch with someone who voted a different way. And this would be one thing if this was sequestered and just, liberals were miserable in their lives just on their own. But this does have real policy impacts.
69% say the economy is bad. 65% say Biden is slow to react when issues arise, and over half say the man is simply incompetent.
It very well perhaps even changed an election in 2020. So we talk about all of that in my book, Liberal Misery.
How so? What do you mean by changing the election?
Intro the liberal. Most liberals at this point are trying to bait people into the election fraud debate, the election fraud, and Eddie's going to go in a different way here, but I want to bring something to light right now, and that is the fact that without the Russian investigation for 4 straight years and all of the lies sold by the liberal media, CNN, NBC, and MSNBC specifically selling the lies, many people getting promotions, big contracts based off the lies. There were Pulitzer Prizes given out to people in journalism for the lie of the Russian investigation, which all ended up being actually Hillary Clinton and her campaign that was colluding with the Russians and lying about all of it. It was all a lie from the beginning.
Seems like years ago that we were hearing that Trump was colluding with Russia, that he wouldn't have won the election without Russia, that his whole presidency was a kind of Putin plot. Well, there's now serious evidence that it was the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton acolytes that were directly involved in the generation of what has proven to be a conspiracy. Untrue.
Polling data by Pew Research that shows that the majority of people that voted for Joe Biden only did so because they believed in the Russian collusion. They believed in the impeachment trials. They believed in all of the nonsense. And now finding out that it was all a lie and that Russia was not actually a thing, and that Hillary Clinton and her campaign were involved with the Russians and made the whole thing up, is now proven that people would have voted for Donald Trump instead.
Well, if you were alive at that point, there was the Black Lives Matter, the mostly peaceful Black Lives Matter rioting.
These protests went on for a year. As you can see this photo behind me, they were literally throwing Molotov cocktails trying to kill police officers. And I didn't hear a whole lot from my colleagues on the other side for an entire year. I guess that's what gets me more than anything else.
It's willful ignorance. It's a dismissal of facts because you just don't like them. You really have to be ignoring what you see because you want to.
Rioting in the streets, violence, destruction. I think you live in DC, but every storefront and everything was boarded up. Why was it boarded up in every Democrat city? That wasn't because of a possible Biden win. That was because of a possible Trump win. It has become this hostage situation where if liberals don't get their way, they are threatening political violence, and we're just supposed to accept it. So that's the point I'm making in Liberal Misery.
And so you think that some people voted for Biden just so liberals wouldn't like throw rocks after the election, or is that the connection? I'm just curious what the connection to the election you're making is.
Yeah, or kill police. Yes, I think there were. I actually knew some people in my personal life who they said if things can just tone down a little bit, if we can bring the temperature down, which by the way, that's something that Biden promised. I'll deal with it. Maybe I don't necessarily agree with all the policies, but if we can just bring a little bit of calm back to this country, I will vote for Democrats. What have we seen? We've seen the exact opposite. So I hope that most voters have found out that didn't work. In fact, after the election, liberals and Democrats only got more miserable.
You have a theory on, from your perspective, what makes liberals miserable? And have you looked throughout history, like if you go back 200 years?
Specific groups are used because they can emotionally get behind an idea without mentally being behind an idea. You can get people motivated thinking that you're taking people's rights away from them, even if you're not taking their rights away from them, because of their emotional state. So they're easily swayed because of their emotions and ignore facts because of their emotions, and therefore then believe that they care more than other people when they're ignoring facts.
Or the abolitionists. I would suspect that, you know, some of the most miserable, like personal people in the like 1830s and 40s were probably abolitionists because they're just, you know, consumed with the horror that is around them and that they're living through. And I think that kind of, you know, that's an extreme version of it, but I feel like that might explain some of why you find less satisfaction among liberals, because they look around the world and they see the horror of it.
And there it is. Take it to a place that nobody else is talking about and base all of how liberals are so heartfelt, loving people, because it goes all the way back to slavery. They've been unhappy ever since the Republicans freed the slaves and took the slaves away from the Democrats, because the Democrats were the slave owners. They were the ones who supported and believed in slavery. They were the dominant leaders of the South. They were also the supporters of Europe. They were the supporters of England. They were the loyalists to the king that we had to fight against, that the Republicans and the Whig Party and the Americans had to fight against during the Revolutionary War to push back the ideas of liberalism and Democrats that were flooding over from Europe and which was trying to impose its rule upon us.
I was just going to add to that, and that's what I think is one of the really interesting things. So, like, the abolition movement was heavily Christian, and the American right now is heavily Christian, and there are correlations between not just Christianity, but religion in general, faith.
She just said it. The abolitionist movement was pushed by the Christians, which are predominantly on the right, predominantly Republican, pushed for the freeing of the slaves. So she's clearing the without undermining her co-host, she's clearing the air that the abolitionists were Christians and not this anti-faith movement that we see out of the left. So the liberal Democrat Party has stood in direct opposition to religion.
So there are kind of lifestyle differences that, as people have documented, like in Coming Apart, where if you're isolating in different areas of the country where there's different levels of social capital, or you're getting married later, you're having fewer children than you say you want, which we know is true of American women. It seems like some of these lifestyle differences are contributing to this. It's less political than it is maybe downstream of lifestyle and cultural differences.
That's the argument that I'm making, is that liberalism is a belief system, is a way of living, is a way of thinking, and it is corrosive, it is destructive, it is pervasive, it is causing the problems that we see today.
Right. So the first chapter of Liberal Misery is all packed with all this data and the studies and the surveys that demonstrate this. But yes, as you were saying, lifestyle differences, religiosity was one thing that I think the most important study I looked at was based on 4 other studies that talked with people about how they feel about their own agency, their independence. Do you feel like you're in control of your life? Are you more religious? All of those things, the more likely you were to say, I'm in control of my destiny, I do have greater a sense of faith and a religious aspect to my life, all of those were more correlated with happiness. The more of that you attested to having what you were more likely to be happy and to demonstrate some more satisfaction in every single area of your life.
I think that's really important what he just said right there, is he's saying that people who are liberal tend to think that the world is happening to them and that they have no power and that they're helpless and that they're just caught up in all of this. And people who tend to find themselves to be more conservative, Republican, or independent tend to have their own responsibilities, feel that they are in control of their lives and that their decisions actually matter in their lives.
When I say every area, that was something that kind of surprised me. As far as going back, I didn't go back too far in history to look at all this. What I did think, I thought, maybe the 2016 election was a turning point for this because, you're more happier when your home team wins, right? But I went back to the Obama years and thought, let me look at these same exact questions, because some of them, Gallup and Pew, they ask the same question every year, every 4 years, whatnot. And I saw that even during the Obama years, Democratic voters were still more likely to say that they were unhappy with any given area of their life. And they were also more likely to say they want to have nothing to do with the other side.
Liberals tend to avoid any additional information that could potentially change their viewpoint on reality. They reject it, they get very angry about it, and it's because it forces them to look at themselves and realize that what they think they thought they might be wrong about. And it's very difficult for people who have emotionally attached to their intelligence or emotionally attached to what they thought they knew. And so when they find out that what they thought they knew all of this time was a lie, they would rather reject it and attack the person telling it than potentially analyze it.
And just to give you one example, for the Trump years, it was, if you were a Trump voter and you were a student, I believe it was Duke. They asked students, they said, if you were a Trump voter, are you okay sitting with, or rooming with, or study buddy with a Clinton voter? It was like 60, somewhere between 60 and 70% of Trump voters said, yeah, I have no problem whatsoever.
Well, that makes total sense, because people who have information want to give that information out to people. People who are open to receiving information from all over the place. Independents, conservatives, Republicans tend to receive information from all over the place. Even statistically are more open to believing in conspiracies than people on the left. That's more of an open mind. I mean, we found that in the last, just 10 years alone, how many things that we thought were conspiracies actually ended up being true. UFOs, for instance, the government lied to us for 70 years about UFOs. How many people jumped on the bandwagon and attacked and made fun of people who said that they saw UFOs, and now the government's proven that, or has said that UFOs exist.
After decades of public denial, the Pentagon now admits there's something out there. So what you're telling me is that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
Bill, I think we're beyond that already. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
So all of you people who are attacking and anti didn't want to hear any extra information. No, I don't want to hear any more information. You ended up finding out that because you ignored all of that extra information, that people who believed in UFOs, people who believed in conspiracies, they had that extra information. And so being the fact that they had that extra information, they wanted other people to know about that information as well.
Clinton voters, only around 30% would say they wanted to have anything to do with the Trump voter, whether it was sitting with them at lunch, rooming with them, study buddy with them. So it was just really astonishing to see that play out, even during the Obama years, as I was just saying.
Or is it the other way around, that that feeling a kind of way creates a particular politics, or is having the politics then create a type of feeling in people?
Now this one's important here, because everything that Ryan just got done saying, Eddie is going to dismantle all of it really quickly. And I don't know if Ryan actually grasps onto it. That's how bad he's emotionally caught up in it. And Eddie's going to get, the facts have already been laid out, but he's emotionally caught into it. He's trying to find anything he can to get away from and say, well, it's because I care more. It's because my heart is bigger than everybody else's. We're getting into a caring contest now. And that's what it is for Democrats and liberals, is that they believe that this is a caring contest, and because they care more than everybody else, then therefore they're better. Eddie's about to dismantle everything Ryan just said, and that's what I love about a lot of times covering Ryan's stuff, is that the guests literally tear him apart right afterwards, and he never even grasps onto it.
Well, I hope this answers your question. I will say that it struck me that there was one study that kind of attempted to explain why liberals are more likely to say, why Democratic voters are more likely to say that they're unhappy on any given subject. And the theory with this particular study was, well, they're just so preoccupied with inequality, and the idea that there's so much inequality in the country that just weighs on their mind. Well, that doesn't explain why they would be more likely to say that they're unhappy with their marriages and their personal relationships. That I can't really square those things.
So what he just pointed out there, Ryan tried to say it's because we care so much about the world that's why we're caught up in political decisions and social decisions. But it doesn't square, like Eddie just said, why you're so unhappy in all of your personal lives that have absolutely nothing to do with Republicans. It's showing that statistically people who think this way are very unhappy because you're being used emotionally to support causes that you don't understand you're supporting. And in most cases, not to say that some of these causes don't need supporting, but they need supported from an intelligence level and not just blind emotional fools rushing in and throwing themselves on a sword for no reason.
To your point, is that politics is and has become for some time now an all-consuming factor with the left, with Democrats, with liberal voters. Just getting to the point of it being all-consuming was that regardless of your income level, you could be a janitor, you could be a CEO of a company. You are more likely, if you are a Democratic voter, to give money to your cause or to your candidate. That is without, you could be you could make pennies literally for a living. But if you are a Democratic voter, you are just more concerned. You care far more about your issue than independents and people on the right.
They're more emotionally involved in what they believe. They're not logically or intellectually involved in it, but they are very emotionally involved in it and will give money blindly to causes that they don't even know, because they just think that their heart is where everything needs to be, and that's what will dictate their all things. Is that if they do all things great for all people all the time, then they're a good person. And they don't realize that sometimes when you do good things, what you think is a good thing ends up being a bad thing, given the fact that we have Joe Biden now. Everybody thought that they were emotionally doing the right thing by electing Joe Biden, and Donald Trump was a racist, bigot, homophobe, and all these things that nobody actually proved, but they emotionally hung around his neck to get all of these people to hate him so much because of emotions and no facts. We're now given Joe Biden, and we're now proven that liberal leadership is a failure. As much as our feelings may have wanted us to elect Joe Biden because he just felt like the right guy who just wasn't a mean man, this is the result, is a horrible failure. Us paying thousands of dollars more per year for all of the things that we paid thousands of dollars less for under Donald Trump, and all because so many people emotionally disliked Donald Trump and had no concept and or clue about what he did policy-wise that lowered everybody's taxes and gave everybody more money in their pockets, given the fact that most people base all of success off of money. That tells me that Donald Trump was a better president than Joe Biden, and I don't even want Donald Trump to run again. I just can't stand liberalism because it's an emotional lie that gets people to do things that they don't understand. All because they think it feels good to their heart, and that's why they give so much money to their causes without actually knowing that their cause comes back to bite them in their ass. And with that being said, if you haven't hit that like and subscribe by now, you definitely need to. I mean, if you're still here, you like me, and I love having you here. So I'd love to see you back in the next video. Thanks for watching. Later.